His wrists ached from the cold metal cuffs, and the alien crowd roared with laughter as he was dragged across the royal hall. Just hours ago, Captain Elias Reeve had been humanity's top envoy, an explorer sent to make peace with the Zalari Empire. Now he was a prisoner, stripped of rank, title, and freedom. And his fate? To be paraded like a trophy before the infamous Queen Kalara. She sat on a throne carved from obsidian and star crystal, her tall form bathed in violet light. Eyes sharp as blades, silver skin shimmered like armor, and a long braid coiled like a serpent down her back. She was power incarnate, and she'd just claimed Elias as her pet. The chamber silenced as she rose, every movement calculated, sensual yet dangerous. Her voice echoed. This human trespassed into our quadrant, but instead of death, I choose to keep him. Laughter. Applause. Elias clenched his jaw. He met her eyes, unflinching. I'm no one's toy. A smile played at the corner of her lips, half amusement, half warning. Then earn your freedom, human. If you can tame the queen who owns you. The court erupted again, but Elias didn't flinch. He wasn't broken. Not yet. The chambers they threw him into were less a prison and more a luxurious cage. Silk drapes, floating orbs of light, and a massive circular bed. But it was still a cage, and he was still her captive. That night she visited. Not with guards, but alone. Elias was pacing when the door slid open, her silhouette framed by the soft blue glow of the corridor. She stepped in, letting the silence build. You're braver than most, she said finally, circling him slowly. Or just foolish. I came here for peace, Elias said, eyes following her. Not collars. She stopped in front of him, looking up. She wasn't much shorter than him, even without her heeled war boots. Peace, she echoed. Peace isn't profitable, human. Domination is. He didn't reply. He didn't need to. You hate me, she said softly, searching his face. I don't know you yet. Something flickered in her eyes. Interest? Surprise? She turned away. Get some rest. Tomorrow you'll dine with me. And my court will be watching. Displease me, and I may have to punish my pet. I'm not yours, he repeated. But she was already gone. The dinner was a spectacle. The Zalari court shimmered with iridescent gowns and hovering lanterns. Queen Kalara sat atop her elevated seat, while Elias stood beside her, dressed in finely tailored robes meant to mock his humanity. Bare-chested, silver-threaded, his earth insignia replaced by the queen's emblem. She didn't introduce him as a diplomat or a soldier. She introduced him as her acquisition. Yet as the night wore on, something strange happened. She let him speak. He told them of earth, of music, of laughter, of oceans that stretched farther than the eye could see. The court laughed at first, but then they listened, and Kalara watched him, silent, unreadable. When the feast ended, and they walked alone through the moon gardens, she finally asked, Why didn't you fight me at the table? Why didn't you embarrass me in front of them? Elias looked at the massive twin moons above. Because I saw something in their eyes. Curiosity. Not fear. Maybe. You want more than a pet. She paused. You think you understand me? No, he said. But I think you're tired of everyone pretending to. For the first time, she didn't respond with sarcasm or power. She simply stood beside him and said nothing. But in that silence, something cracked open. And it terrified her. Later that night, back in his chambers, Elias was restless. Her words, her silence, her eyes. Everything echoed in his mind. She was beautiful, yes, but dangerous, unpredictable. And something deep within him whispered that she was fighting a war no one else could see. A war inside her. Suddenly, the doors burst open. Kalara stepped in, but not as a queen. Her braids undone, her armor gone. She looked raw, unmasked. I shouldn't be here, she whispered. But I can't stop thinking about you. Why? Elias stood unsure. She walked to him, close enough for him to feel the heat of her skin. You're not afraid of me, she said. No, and that makes me afraid of you. He didn't move, didn't speak. The silence grew thick. Then softly she reached for his hand. The same hand that once fought battles. The same hand that now held hers. I was bred for control, she said. But with you, I'm losing it. Elias looked into her eyes. And for the first time, she looked human. End of section 1. The next morning, Elias woke with the memory of her hand still wrapped in his. But Kalara was gone. Not a single trace. Not a scent on the silk. Not a print in the dust. Only the phantom weight of her presence lingered, heavier than chains. He paced. The room, for all its beauty, now felt like a box tightening around him. He wasn't sure what unnerved him more, being her captive, or the fact that he had wanted her to stay. Moments later, the door hissed open. But it wasn't her. A Zalari servant floated in, her body covered in shimmering veils. She bowed deeply. "The Queen requests your presence in the war chamber." "War chamber?" Elias asked, wary. "Yes, human. You will not be harmed. She specifically requested your insight." His insight? That was new. The war chamber loomed like a cathedral. Holoprojections danced in the air. Maps of star systems, tactical reports, battle probabilities, shifting troop placements across galaxies. Kalara stood at the center, cloaked in her general's attire, armor reforged from the bones of asteroids and metal mined from dying stars. She didn't look at him as he entered. Only when the chamber sealed behind him did she speak. "You said you came here for peace. Show me what that looks like." Elias blinked. "You want my opinion on your war strategy?" Kalara turned, her expression unreadable. "I want your mind, Elias. You've intrigued me. Enough to risk appearing weak in front of my own command." "You're not weak," he said softly. "You're afraid." She flinched at that, just slightly. He stepped forward, taking in the map projections. "You're fighting 6 fronts. Stretched supply lines. Too many systems conquered, not enough held. Your people, they admire you, but they're tired. Silence. You want to win the war? End it. Pull back. Strengthen what you already hold. Build. Not just destroy." Kalara stared at him. Then, slowly, she dismissed her generals with a wave. The chamber cleared. Just the two of them now. "I wasn't made for peace," she said quietly. "No one is at first." Their eyes locked. Something shifted. Days passed, and every day, Elias was summoned again. Not as a pet, but as an advisor. He showed her alternatives to domination. Negotiation, resource trade, even interspecies cooperation. At first, the court scoffed, but Kalara made them listen. And each night she returned. Never admitting why. Never staying long. Just long enough to sit in silence, sometimes close enough to touch, other times just a presence in the dark. Then, one evening, she appeared in his chamber with a look of strange vulnerability. "Tomorrow," she said, "I'm expected to execute 3 rebels from the Telari uprising." Elias tensed. "And you don't want to?" She didn't answer. Her silence was answer enough. "I can't let them think I've gone soft," she murmured. "But I can't keep pretending I don't feel. Especially not around you." He stepped forward, brushing his fingers against her cheek. "Then don't pretend. Not with me." She leaned into the touch. "I don't know how to be anything but a weapon, Elias." He whispered, "Maybe it's time someone showed you how to be a woman again." Her breath hitched. And this time, when she kissed him, it wasn't about control. It was surrender. That night, something changed forever. No longer captor and captive, but something fragile, unspoken, electric. Yet dawn came with fire. A fleet breached orbit. One of Kalara's oldest rivals, the Draxian lords, had chosen that moment to attack. And her court, panicked by her recent leniencies, blamed him. Elias was seized, thrown into a stasis pod, sentenced to death without her consent. But Kalara didn't wait. She stormed the tribunal. Alone. And what she said echoed through the halls like thunder. "If you touch him, I'll raise this empire myself." Silence. Even her enemies didn't doubt she meant it. She turned, tore open the stasis pod. And for the first time before her entire court, she offered Elias her hand. Not as queen to pet, but as woman to man. End of section 2. The court stood frozen. A queen, untouchable, feared across galaxies, now stood with her hand extended toward the very human she once paraded as a pet. Her generals whispered, her nobles gasped. But Kalara's eyes didn't waver. "Take it," she said softly. Elias stared at her. Not the throne behind her. Not the guards waiting for a command. Just her. Vulnerable. Unshielded. And finally free. He reached forward. Their fingers interlaced. And the chamber erupted. Some in outrage. Some in awe. But no one dared intervene. Not after the fire they saw behind the queen's eyes. News traveled fast. Across moons and markets, in slums and orbiting palaces. The Zalari queen had chosen a human. Not for power. Not for display. But for something far more dangerous. Love. Some celebrated. Others rioted. And deep within the stars, rival empires began plotting. Kalara and Elias, however, retreated to her private sanctum, an ancient sanctuary carved into the side of a comet drifting through neutral space. It was a place no one dared breach. No politics. No thrones. Just them. "You realize," Elias said one night, tracing his fingers along the glowing patterns etched into the crystal walls, "you've started a civil storm." Kalara smiled faintly, resting her head on his chest. "Then let the galaxy burn. It was never mine to begin with." He chuckled, then paused. "What happens now?" She sat up, brushing a lock of hair from his brow. "Now, you teach me to live without fear. And I teach you to survive without armor." It sounded simple. It wasn't. The first attack came a week later. The Draxian lords had allied with the Obsidian Ring, a network of assassins, mercenaries, and fallen royalty. Kalara's refusal to execute Elias had sparked chaos. Her own generals splintered. Loyalists fled. They wanted her crown. They wanted him dead. So she ran, with him, from world to world, station to station, always one step ahead of death. But as they fled, something unexpected happened. People followed, not out of fear, but loyalty. Zalari rebels, human outcasts, even enemy species who once knew only terror under her rule. They joined them. They called themselves the sovereigns of the new sky. It wasn't a rebellion. It was a rebirth. And Elias became more than her partner. He became her balance. One night, on the edge of the red giant Gorus, 9, as they drifted alone aboard an abandoned trade vessel, Kalara looked at him with a strange kind of peace in her eyes. "I don't want the throne anymore," she whispered. Elias turned. "You don't need to give up your legacy." "I don't want it," she repeated. "My legacy was built on fear. But you showed me another kind of power, one that doesn't conquer planets, one that simply holds a hand, and keeps holding it." He cupped her face gently. "And do you regret it? Any of it?" "No," she breathed. "Because I found something the empires could never give me." "What's that?" "You." They returned, not with fleets, but with truth. Kalara stood before what remained of her council, not as their ruler, but as their equal. She renounced conquest, declared open borders, offered peace talks to ancient enemies. Many laughed, some threatened, but enough listened, and that was all it took. Years passed. The Zalari Empire softened. The stars once stained with war began to bloom with trade, culture, and shared hope. Kalara and Elias never married. They didn't need to. The universe already called them bound. And wherever she walked, the former queen was never seen without the human who tamed her heart. Not with chains, but with choice and love. Decades later, long after most had forgotten the wars and whispers, a new statue was unveiled on the neutral planet of Celis. 2 figures stood at its center. One tall and silver-skinned, the other rugged and human, their hands forever joined in crystal. The plaque beneath it read, "She took him as a pet, but he gave her a reason to be human." And to those who stood before it, one truth remained eternal. The heart, even in the coldest galaxy, finds its way. // End of section 3, and end of story.